I thank God all the time for all the people that have been part of my life and career that have helped me get here. There's always been something quietly distinct about Alan Jackson, that steady grit, that unmistakable voice, and a deep-rooted commitment to doing things his way. At 66, he's opened up about something fans had long sensed but never fully understood. For years, murmurs followed his performances. Something felt different. His presence on stage had changed subtly at first, but noticeably to those who had followed him closely. Now, Alan himself has confirmed what many had quietly feared. There's been a private battle unfolding behind the scenes, and with a rare kind of vulnerability, he's decided to share it. So, what exactly is going on with Alan Jackson, and why did he choose now, after all this time, to speak up? The dream that almost cost everything. Alan Jackson, the man who would go on to become a giant in country music, didn't start off in the spotlight. Before the awards, the fame, and the standing ovations, he was just a small-town boy from Newnan, Georgia, born into a working-class family. Alan was the youngest of 5 kids, and the only boy. His dad, Joseph, worked as a mechanic, while his mom, Ruth, was a school dietitian who ran the cafeteria. Life was simple, but filled with the kind of love and grit that shaped who Alan would become. Now, Alan wasn't just dreaming about music, he was living a real-life love story too. He met his future wife, Denise, when they were teenagers hanging around the local Dairy Queen. Back then, Denise wasn't exactly quick to give him the time of day. Alan had to stay on her case for years before she finally gave in, but when she did, everything clicked. One day, they took a ride in Alan's Thunderbird convertible, and just like that, a forever kind of love was born. They got married in December 1979, still just 2 kids chasing big dreams. Alan had music on his heart and Nashville on his mind, so he and Denise packed up and left Georgia behind. It wasn't glamorous, far from it. They both hustled just to survive. Alan worked in a mailroom, Denise worked as a flight attendant. Money was tight, but belief was strong. Alan even sold his car so they could buy their first house. That's how deep he was into this dream. Then came a twist of fate. One day at the airport, Denise spotted country legend Glen Campbell. She didn't hesitate. She walked right up to him and told him he needed to hear her husband's music. Something about her confidence must have hit the right note because Glen gave her his business card. That one bold move opened the door Alan had been knocking on for years. By 1990, Alan was no longer just some guy in a mailroom. His debut album Here in the Real World exploded, selling over 2 million copies. It marked a shift in country music, bringing back a more traditional sound at a time when things had gotten a little too pop. Alan was part of a wave alongside names like Randy Travis and Garth Brooks that brought heart and roots back to the genre. At the same time, Alan's family was growing too. That same year his first album dropped, he and Denise welcomed their daughter Maddie. Then came Alexandra and Danny Grace. With a booming career and a new mansion to show for it, everything seemed picture perfect. But behind the scenes, things weren't as smooth as they looked. Fame brought pressure, and that pressure landed squarely on their marriage. Alan and Denise tried therapy. Alan admitted it wasn't easy, since he was used to handling things on his own. But they worked through it and even renewed their vows, determined to start fresh. Still, life had more tests in store. As Alan's career soared, rumors of infidelity began to swirl. The same couple who fell in love over milkshakes and joyrides now found themselves struggling to hold on. Denise had always imagined life on the road with her husband would be magical. Instead, it was lonely and disappointing. She opened up years later, saying she had built up this fantasy of being the perfect star wife. The hurt cut deep, and in 1997, they separated. Alan told Denise that after 18 years, maybe they just couldn't fix it. He felt they both deserved more. Denise was heartbroken and left to care for their 3 daughters alone, battling depression and trying to make sense of it all. After Denise and Alan Jackson split up over his infidelities, Denise went through something deeper than just heartbreak. She had a spiritual awakening. That moment changed everything for her. It gave her the strength to forgive Alan, even after all the pain. They spent about 4 months apart, trying to heal in their own ways. But eventually, They found their way back to each other and decided to give their marriage another shot. Now, you'd think that after going through that kind of storm, things would finally calm down for them. But life had another curveball waiting. Right when they were in Florida celebrating their anniversary, Denise got a call that shook her world. She had colorectal cancer. Out of nowhere. She'd always been healthy, full of energy, the last person anyone would expect to get that kind of diagnosis. Alan was right there beside her when the call came through, and they didn't waste any time. That vacation ended fast, and they headed straight back to Nashville to figure out the next steps. Radiation, chemotherapy, all of it. Alan, usually calm and collected, was rocked to the core. For the first time, he felt the weight of those wedding vows, for better or worse. And in true artist fashion, he turned to music to deal with it all. A few weeks after Denise's diagnosis, a song just flowed out of him. He called it When I Saw You Leaving, and the lyrics were raw. He didn't even tell Denise about it right away because it hit so deep. When she finally heard it, she broke down in tears. But those tears were mixed with love and comfort too. It meant a lot to her that he could put his heart on paper like that. That experience marked another turning point in their lives. They sold their Florida home and made Nashville their permanent base. Denise fought with everything she had, and thankfully, she beat the cancer. She emerged stronger, more grounded, and more focused on what truly matters, Alan Jackson's quiet country rebellion. Back in the late 90s and early 2000s, country music started shifting. A lot of it began sounding more like pop, slicker production, crossover hooks, that kind of thing. Some fans loved the new wave, but others felt like the heart of country music was getting lost. That's where Alan Jackson stepped in. He linked up with George Strait and dropped a track called Murder on Music Row. Now, they weren't pulling punches. The song basically said, "Hey, y'all are killing real country music." And people took notice. What's wild is that this song wasn't even released as a single. No radio push, no big promo, but it still made major noise. It became the highest charting album cut to hit the Hot Country Singles and Tracks chart during the Broadcast Data Systems era. That broke the previous record held by Garth Brooks with Below Wood. The duo was invited to kick off the 2000 ACM Awards with that very song. While others leaned into spectacle, lights, costume changes, the whole 9 yards, Jackson kept it simple. Just a man, his guitar, and the music. By this time, Alan Jackson already had a track record full of hits and awards. But in 2002, he dropped an album that stood out even more, Drive. That project swept up awards, including Album of the Year at both the CMA and ACM Awards. One of the most memorable songs on it was Where Were You When the World Stopped Turning, written in response to the 9/11 attacks. Jackson wasn't trying to be political or overly patriotic. He just wanted to express how he felt. And the way the song came to him was almost spiritual. He literally sang it into a recorder in the middle of the night and went back to bed. No guitar, no overthinking, just raw emotion poured into a melody. Another standout on the album was the title track, Drive, for Daddy Gene. It wasn't just a hit. It went #1 on the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart and even cracked the Billboard Hot 100 at number 28. The music video, blending animation and live action with flashbacks from Jackson's childhood, snagged Video of the Year at the 2002 ACMs. This wasn't just a song about cars. It was a tribute to his father, Eugene Jackson, who passed away in 2000. Alan didn't want it to feel like a sad goodbye. He wanted to celebrate the small, meaningful memories, the kind that stick with you. During his dad's funeral, Alan realized just how deeply respected his father was in the community. He said he learned more about his dad after he passed than he had while he was alive. The song reflects that, simple lyrics, but powerful in how real they feel. In the first verse, there's that moment of buying a used boat together, 18 feet long, and you can almost see little Alan riding along with his dad to go pick it up. The second verse brings us to a dusty road, hauling a load, and that sweet moment when his dad lets him take the wheel. Then the third verse, that's the full circle. Now Alan's the father, letting his daughters drive his old Jeep, just like his daddy did for him. When tragedy changed the tune in 2017, when Alan Jackson's mother Ruth passed away, it left a deep void in his life. She wasn't just his mom, She was his foundation. To cope with the loss, Jackson turned to the one thing that had always helped him make sense of the world: music. He wrote a song called Where Her Heart Has Always Been, specifically for her funeral. What made it even more special was that the song included a recording of Ruth reading a Bible passage. His sister had captured that audio months before her passing, hoping it would give the family something to hold on to. Later shared how thankful he was to have that recording and how much it meant to the song Ruth, or Mama Ruth as many knew her, was the heart of the Jackson family. She balanced being a wife raising 5 kids and running things as a dietitian and cafeteria manager. She was known for her cooking, especially her pies. Alan made sure there was always one of her lemon ice box pies waiting backstage for him. That pie brought a little bit of home wherever he went. Funny enough, it was a hit with most people except Merle Haggard, who wasn't a fan. It was also Ruth who encouraged Alan to explore gospel music that led to the Precious Memories album, filled with simple, heartfelt hymns from his Baptist upbringing. He wanted the songs to feel just like they did when sung in church growing up. As a final gift, he gave that album to his mom for Christmas, just before she passed. But heartbreak wasn't done with him yet. In 2018, just a year after losing his mother, Jackson's family was struck by another tragedy. His son-in-law Ben Seligman died after a fall on a boat dock in Jupiter, Florida. Ben had been trying to help a woman onto a boat when he slipped and suffered severe head trauma. He was only 28. Ben, whose full name was Samuel Benton Seligman, had married Jackson's daughter Maddie just the year before. In October 2017, their love story started at a friend's wedding, but it took a couple of years and a whole lot of persistence on Ben's part before Maddie agreed to a date. He once drove nearly 4 hours just to have dinner with her, and after that they were inseparable. Their wedding was featured as the cover story of Southern Bride's summer/fall 2018 issue. After his passing, the magazine shared wedding photos online and expressed their heartbreak over the news. Davidson County District Attorney Glenn Funk remembered Ben as a rising star in their office. He was respected, loved, and carried himself like a true Southern gentleman assistant. DA Tammy Mead also shared how Ben brought joy and kindness wherever he went. The office honored him with a heartfelt Facebook post showing just how much he meant to them. There's still some mystery around why Ben was in Florida that day, but Alan Jackson does own property there, so it wasn't unusual for the family to spend time in the area. For Jackson, life had always been about creating music and sharing stories. Hit after hit had poured out of him, but after losing both his mother and his son-in-law, something changed. He stepped away from the studio. The fire that drove him to write and record cooled his last album. At the time, Angels and Alcohol was followed by a long 6-year pause. Even though he continued performing live, he just couldn't bring himself to write. He admitted that those losses hit hard and that he and his family needed time to heal. Just as he started finding his way back and gearing up to record again, the pandemic hit, throwing another wrench into his plans. Still, Jackson wasn't one to let setbacks stop him. With precautions in place, he gathered his team and went back into the studio determined to create again. The result was Where Have You Gone, an album filled with the same emotional depth and honesty that had always defined his music. Alan Jackson's silent struggle revealed just when it seemed like Alan Jackson was back in full swing. Life threw him a curveball. The country music legend revealed to fans that he had been diagnosed with Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease, or CMT, a name that sounds like a music award. Today's show how he explained that CMT is a hereditary neurological disease that affects the nerves and muscles, causing weakness, balance issues, and nerve damage. It wasn't fatal, but it had no cure. What made the situation even harder for Jackson was he started to struggle with his balance and worried fans might think he was drunk or unwell for other reasons. Instead of staying silent, he decided it was time to tell the truth. The main reason he shared the news was to explain why his performances might not look the same anymore. Jackson said the disease was starting to hit his ability to perform live, and he wasn't sure how long he'd be able to keep touring. Despite the difficult news, he made it clear that he felt blessed. Finally, sharing the diagnosis gave him a sense of relief. He no longer had to hide the physical changes happening to him, and it gave him peace, knowing people would understand why he walked the way he did or lost his footing on stage. CMT, which was first identified in 1886, is a rare and complicated condition. It shows up in different ways depending on the genetic makeup of each individual, though it's not life-threatening. It causes long-term nerve damage. Doctors usually diagnose it through blood Tests and monitoring the nervous system symptoms can include scoliosis, muscle weakness, foot deformities, and sometimes even problems with breathing or speaking. Some people with CMT have to use braces or undergo foot surgeries to manage symptoms. Public figures like Julie Newmar and Anthony Ramos have also dealt with the disease. Still, even with the challenges, Alan Jackson wasn't ready to step away from the music just yet. Songwriting and preserving traditional country music remained his greatest passion. He wanted his legacy to be built on the music he created, and he was determined to keep going as long as his body allowed. He expressed that he never liked the idea of a dramatic farewell tour, saying he'd keep performing whenever he could without making a big show of leaving. In the midst of all this, Jackson had been reflecting on life, family, and music. In April 2021, he released a heartfelt song called "You'll Always Be My Baby." It was a tribute to the bond between a father and daughter. Capturing memories from early childhood to adulthood, the song felt deeply personal, especially knowing that Jackson had 3 daughters of his own with his wife Denise. Listeners and critics alike noted how touching and genuine the lyrics were, calling it the perfect song for a father-daughter dance. Jackson seemed to pour a lot of emotion into this new chapter of his music. He admitted that his latest album had a stronger country sound than even his earlier work while listening to the final mixes in his car produced by his longtime collaborator Keith Stegall. He found himself unexpectedly moved to tears. The emotional weight of the music and the moments it captured seemed to hit him all at once. It was a reminder that no matter what was happening physically, his heart was still deeply rooted in the songs he created. Through it all, fans stood by him. Messages of love and support flooded in after he opened up about his condition. Many praised his bravery and honesty. Jackson, in turn, seemed grateful for the understanding and connection he still shared with his audience. Though the road ahead might come with more obstacles, he wasn't letting CMT silence his voice or stop his journey. Music had always been his calling, and he planned to keep answering it one song at a time. He knew the end was near. Less than a year after Alan Jackson publicly shared his diagnosis, he packed his bags and hit the road for a national tour he called Last Call. One more for the road. It wasn't just about performing, it was personal. He grew up admiring legends like George Jones, Merle Haggard, Loretta Lynn, and Charlie Pride, artists who kept playing as long as they could. Alan wanted to follow in their footsteps, so he did what he could for as long as his health would allow. And in true Alan Jackson fashion, he made sure $1 from every ticket sold went to the CMT Research Foundation, acknowledging his condition while still doing what he loved. He played over a dozen shows across the country, giving fans a chance to hear the voice behind Livin' on Love live one more time. But by October 2022, things started to shift. His final 2 shows had to be postponed because he wasn't feeling well. He shared how much he hated letting people down and how he had really hoped to be on that stage. Even after stepping back from touring, the music never left him. In a conversation with his daughter Maddie on her podcast Enjoy Life, Alan said he was still scribbling lyrics, humming melodies, and thinking about what might come next. Songwriting for him had always been more than just a job. It was a challenge, something that sparked creativity in a way performing never could. He admitted that if he hadn't written so many of his songs, he probably would have gotten bored of just singing long ago. But even with that spark still alive, the truth about his illness couldn't be ignored. The Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease he's been living with isn't something that just goes away. It's progressive, and over time it makes